Well, this video has been a long time coming, especially with Pokemon Day getting ever closer as with the release of Legends ZA. Hey, a lot of people have had their own takes on X and Y as of late, and while I personally still think the games themselves are good, there is one aspect that has still been the most contentious out of anything, that being the villain collection, Team Flare. While I, among others, still see them as one of the weaker villain factions in the game, others have tried to spin in their behavior as like a sort of class commentary idea. I would simply respond, no. No to point A, no to point Z, no to all points in between, and in this informal essay, I would like to explain my stance on the matter. Here is why, to me at least, Team Flare does not work as class commentary. Let's get started. The first would obviously be the precedent set by previous villain teams, being especially in terms of Flare's immediate predecessor in Team Plasma, uh, which definitely had more angles once that could be responded to, whether you were going for the angle of them being an animal launch group, whether you're going for the angle of them being a religious extremist fanatics, or just a simple idea that gets us kidnapped a child, how to mold him into his image, and he clearly never expected that he would be taking a different path in his own journey, and and with that in mind, I still maintain that both at the time X and Y initially came out in 2013 and in the 12 years since then, and that Flare was an enormous step backwards in terms of threats as well as beliefs as a villain team. I mean, there were individual members that managed to escape this. I mean, you had Malva being sort of double agents, you had Lysander being a genuine threat, and even Zeralsic, while not quite as memorable to me as Kolres, as he still proved to be the most interesting member of the team as their chief scientist. I mean, and I'll touch on this again later in the video. But I'm also going to be explaining very carefully why the main argument people have tried to use who's to try and prop up Flare is functionally broken. In essence, the idea here people have opposed specifically to try and vindicate Flare is the idea of them being representative of a class divide, but given how the setting of Kolos is based heavily on France surrounding areas, is which and the characters are as you play as are more or less placed on equal footing in in terms of power and status as Flare is that does not work in the slightest. I mean, while there are instances where people disagree with each other in real life, if it turns out that the finger on the scale is much more skewed, depending on on where you are in the situation. Sure, it would seem like people like Lysander could take things by force, and only by force, or which they often do. The reality of the situation, more often than not, tends to be they're actually often hopelessly, and in many cases hilariously incompetent at what they've done, so much their trajectory can be summed up in two words: failing upwards. Or it's especially in light of how one moment when someone could be taking a photo opportunity with their child, and the next they could be a pound different answers after her unwittingly leaking sensitive details in their intern's Discord server. For and it really is telling that in order to who make Flare a legitimate threat, I mean both the XYZ anime season and the adventure slash special manga uh, basically dumps that aspect entirely and just depicted them as corrupt at best and downright psychopathic at worst. I mean, basically they spread Lysander's line of thinking to the entire team and honestly made them come off as much more convincing and than they did in the source material, which in discourse around on how the anime often changes in the games, which I'll be addressing another time, does make a solid transition to one of my final points here. And in the subsequent generations of games, while the subsequent villain figures such as Lusamine and Rose, which I've shown there, bore some similarities to Flare with their respective active enforcers being the Aether Foundation and Macrocosmos, that's I honestly find much more believable. I mean, not only do they have their seemingly altruistic organizations, depending on perspective, presented as a front for what they really are planning to do, or at the very least corrupted by their leadership. Uh, they themselves are actually I find a bit more believable as leaders. With Lusamine being emotionally abusing her children in Sun and Moon until they left home in the base game, or in the case of Ultra, being so distraught by the disappearance of her husband Moon, that it fundamentally changed everything about her. Her or Rose, who's been a well-intentioned extremist, and despite what the other article claimed his solution to recreate the Darkest Day would basically be tantamount to causing not only causing a Class 3A apocalypse, but also profiting off of it. Again, that's not a whole stretch, as same deal with misleading the entire Galar or league, including the champion Leon, and when Leon found out, he was understandably less than pleased. He's to be certain, and that's something is often overlooked in both fiction and reality. He, there are lots of people who make their play fully known from the word go, who while others who's actually are better at keeping the worst parts themselves close to their chest. What could be on the surface relatively innocuous could instead turn out to be much more deadly. A, as has been said, appearances deceive, and more often than not, you'll find that antagonists in one's life will not be coming your way in garish orange suits, but rather they're relatively nice looking turtlenecks and and elaborate haircuts and high heels with gold accents. Exactly as I demonstrated here, and while obviously these are first and foremost all ages titles, I am not going expecting in some major or condemnation of the worst vices of the business, but I will state that at the very least, it's both Flair's predecessors and its successors had a much better understanding of what makes an interesting antagonist and what makes an interesting idea to reflect society. Hey, especially as, despite what's been my claim, the days of there's villain fight are long since over. There are a great many complexities in this world that cannot simply be thinned out, especially after a person barrels into them and only finds out this matter after the fact rather than before. Or, but something I have learned both in and out of the classroom is that one need not have all the answers on a topic to comment on it. What is needed is proper understanding of a topic, and overall, that is why I don't consider Team Flare a good example class commentary, right? That it fundamentally does not understand and what makes decent commentary nor a compelling villain. I mean, this may not be the a video that I was going to be having to pursue Pokemon Day, but thankfully, I know it won't be the only one. And I mean, it's just something I've been wanting to turn into do for a long time, and fortunately, I have other videos in mind, and especially as it relates to other areas of the franchise. And it's one I've been working on, another one I've been working on for a while. I just prefer to get it right than just rush it out for the sake of the algorithm. That'll be all for now, and I'll see you all again soon. Seek out more Pokemon.